name's Liz Toth. A couple months ago, I discovered that Templeton used to have a sewing machine manufacturer, and it was called White. And it moved from Templeton. It was in Athol, it was in Orange, but supposedly it started in Templeton, which I thought was fantastic, and I wanted to find out more about it. I went online and started looking around, and I thought, oh, look at this, isn't this great? And I started off with one, which is this one here, which is considered a 3/4 size sewing machine. It's manual, it's a crank on this one, and I have found out so much about sewing machines. I am not a mechanical person, but I'm learning a whole bunch. That sewing machines started off with a chain stitch. Like if you have animal feed bags, the thing at the top that you pull, that is a chain stitch. And it is just one thread that is there within it. Whereas they eventually found a way to be able to lock things, and it's a lock stitch, so that's when you have the top thread and like a bobbin thread. And they had different styles over the years. This is a Singer 221. And it went to a round bobbin, which is what most of the modern sewing machines now have. This particular model from Singer, quilters love it. It's all of these are straight stitches. They don't do anything fancy. When people go on a quilting retreat or something like that, this is the ideal. This is what everybody wants to take. People will come and find these, and all of this will be gone, and it'll be in really rough shape. They will repaint them different colors. So you can get pink ones and purple ones and red ones and all sorts of things, but that's this is a quilter's just dream machine. This is a Singer Model 20. From what I've read online, they said that in the 30s, the 20s and 30s, women, especially in the South, who couldn't afford a regular sewing machine would actually buy these and make their clothes on this as opposed to by hand.
I have two groups of models here. One is a group of trolley cars or street cars, and the other is a group of railroad or truck models that represent various companies based in New England. Trolley here, those are the ones that I rode on as a college kid. They used them between Northeastern University and downtown Boston, and that's an exact model of what I rode on in the early 1970s. It's a model of known as a PCC car. The PCC stood for President's Conference Committee. And it was a group of streetcar company presidents who decided that this should be a modern type of car back in the 1930s. So by the 1970s, when I was riding on them, this particular type, the city of Boston, they bought these secondhand from the city of Dallas, Texas, because they were double-ended. The motorman could control the trolley from either end, as opposed to this type here, which was single-ended, and the rear was quite different. The reason they ran those between Northeastern University and Park Street Station is because the double-ended feature allowed the motorman to just get up and go back, whereas the single-ended cars had to go all the way out to the end of the line, which is Heath Street today by the VA hospital, but Arborway Station back in the 1970s. And the single-ended cars would have a big loop that they went around to turn around and head back into the city, and then they would turn around at Park Street Station. But these double-enders didn't have to have a loop to turn around, so that's where they were used, just to get out as far as Northeastern University and go back again, because that's where the heaviest amount of ridership was between the university and downtown. And then we have certain food companies, so I suppose for some people would say they like the Baker's chocolate car the best if they just like chocolate, There's two large groups. There's a group of four that represent the Eastern Massachusetts Street Railway Company, which covered a lot of towns in all of Eastern, really from the New Hampshire border down to the Rhode Island border. And then there's another group that were from Boston. There's about, six there that represent the transit system in Boston. So there's a lot of transportation history there. There's a lot of talk today, of course, about automobiles and getting away from them and going back to things like that. Years ago, you could ride that brown and maroon trolley as a model of one that ran from Boston to Worcester. The green one behind it was Portland to Lewiston, Maine. Trolleys probably represent the greatest amount of history here.
Chris Para. I live in Gardner, and I brought a collection of Boy Scout and one or two pieces of Girl Scout memorabilia from local area here in Massachusetts. So I was a scout when I was younger. I'm still involved in scouting in Gardner and through Heart of New England Council in central Massachusetts. Was involved at mostly when I was growing up at Camp Collier in Gardner, Mass, and worked on the waterfront there for a number of years. And eventually, when I turned 21, was the waterfront director at Camp Winoxet in Dublin, New Hampshire. Most of this stuff is more historical stuff, so it dates back further than my time in scouting. There are some things that are more recent, but a lot of the items are more from the 40s and 50s, and some from the 60s as well. Over time, I've just kind of branched out in the collection and tried to get things that I just found that interesting in how they look, or what historical value they may have, kind of related to the scouting. There's a couple items that I would kind of wanted to keep as a collection. This belonged to one gentleman from the 1940s. He was a scout in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And so I really like keeping the set together. Kind of tells the history of that gentleman through his scouting career. So instead of breaking up the pieces, it shows his Eagle Medal and his Order of the Arrow sash and some of the things that he did there as a scout in the 40s. Some of the items up here are some from the local camps and just local events that are happening. So there's a patch from Camp Winoxet in Dublin, New Hampshire, which is still active today. We just celebrated our 100th anniversary last year. That patch is about from the 1930s, late 30s and 40s. There's a few items that were from a scout from West Townsend, Massachusetts. He was active in the Fitchburg Area Council in the 1940s. So there's a Camp Low patch, which was from 1920. This is 1946, but Camp Low is now the site of Franklin Pierce College in Rindge, New Hampshire. The council wanted to move closer to where the scouts were, so they moved their operations to Camp Split Rock in Ashburnham, Mass. I also have some items that are more local, so there's some camporees that were done in the 1940s. 1942 was held in Winchendon. 1944 was held right here in Baldwinville. Not sure exactly where in Baldwinville, but somewhere. This is a Girl Scout patch from Camp Collier. This is a third-year camper patch from about the mid-50s. Early on in scouting, scouts would have their units would be designated by their town strips. So they would put that on their sleeve, and you could tell which town they were from. Later on, they went into council strips, so they actually had more of just where the council was located. And that's still the tradition today, is having a council strip instead of an individual town strip. Some of these items here are Order of the Arrow items. Order of the Arrow is the National Honor Society for the Boy Scouts, or Scouting America as it's now known, starting this year in 2025. These are just some of the items, again, from this. This was from the membership card from the Scout in West Townsend. This is an old patch from the 1940s for the Nicowegie Lodge in Camp Collier in Gardner, Massachusetts area. It also included the surrounding towns, so Templeton, Winchendon, Athol, Orange. So what I like about some of these patches is they're older felt patches. They kind of have a little bit more unique design. It's the sailing program that they had. Here's a few photos of what was known as the Monadnock Moth sailboat. And what's kind of unique about the moths were they were made mostly as a father and son project during the winter time. And with Gardner being, and the surrounding communities being heavily involved with woodworking, they would often build these boats during the winter in people's basements. I believe at the peak, there were about 26 moths at Camp Collier, and the regatta was a big event that was well attended and was really looked forward to. And this is just a list of some of the winners of that regatta, starting in, I think it was 1938. There should be something here. all the way up until 1985. So this is just kind of a list of all the winners of that annual regatta for the moth sailboats.